short of it is this. Who wrote the first 5 books of the Bible? I believe it was Moses. However, it is clear through scholarship that there were additions made to it that were after Moses. Things like his death. Things like statements he was the most humble man. But it's clear that the corpus of it, the vast majority of it, came through Moses. And then over time, most likely with Samuel and maybe with Ezra, additions were made to it for clarification's sake. That doesn't take away from its authority. It's just additions that were made to clarify the story. Okay? That's the long and short of it, as far as I'm concerned for that. You want a little bit more detail, I would recommend reading the first part of this. Okay? Right here. An introduction to Genesis. Okay? Where Scott Hahn goes through the synopsis or the synthesis of the scholarship on both sides, the traditional and modern, to come up with a balanced Catholic perspective. Does that make sense, everyone? Everyone good?
Yes.
Okay. Like I said, I'm sure a majority of you never even thought or cared, but these are questions that are still wrestled in theological circles. And why? You say, why are people even caring about this? Who gives a care? Well, it makes a big difference. In this reporter's opinion, this is what makes the difference. If this book was written by a bunch of pseudonymous writers, hundreds, maybe even thousands of years after the events, then how do we know any of it's true? It reduces the Bible to a bunch of fables and myths, no different than any other religious book on the planet. And that makes a big difference. However, if this has come to us from the prophet Moses, that's a big difference, in my opinion. It's the same arguments that are done in the New Testament. Many people don't believe, many scholars, I should not people, many scholars don't believe, for example, that Matthew wrote Matthew. That it was actually written many decades later, in the 80s or 90s, almost towards the end. And so what that implies is that things that Jesus said and did were later added, but were never a part of what really happened. And since it was so long, almost a generation after he lived, no one could verify it. So how do we know it's all true? That's the doubt that is crept into your mind as to the authenticity of the scriptures. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Versus understanding that if Matthew actually wrote Matthew, and not many decades after, but relatively soon after Jesus left the earth, like 20, maybe 30 years after he left the earth, then there were people still alive that could verify what Matthew said. And so if he wrote a bunch of nonsense, he would say, wait a minute, I don't remember Jesus ever saying or doing that. This is a fraud. Do you see what I'm saying? But the fact that we don't see any of that in the early church implies that all that Matthew wrote was probably very close to the very words of what our Lord said. If that's true, then that's the authenticity. That's the backing that we have. That's the assurance that we have that this isn't a fable, this hasn't been passed down, this hasn't been like a game of telephone, where I tell Connie, Connie tells Martha, Martha tells Nell, and by the time it gets to Alvaro, it's completely, you know what I mean? And that's the implication of modern scholarship. The implication of modern scholarship is that since we don't know what Jesus really said or did, we have to rely on the Gospels, but the Gospels are so far removed that it's possible things were embellished to make Jesus a little bit bigger than he was. And that's the implication. Jesus never really claimed God. That was added by the Christians. You following what I'm getting at? Well, in the same way, they look at the books of Moses. They say, well, Moses couldn't have written all this. This was a later addition. They were trying to make Moses bigger than life. Because, well, he's the founder of our faith, other than Abraham. You know, he's the one that really brought it into forefront. But as we heard in the video a couple of weeks ago, some scholars don't even believe Moses even existed, let alone wrote the Bible. Do you see what I mean? So, and there's that kind of thinking nowadays. And there's not that many, but there's a small fringe out there that question that Jesus even existed. The whole thing is a legend. The whole Christian idea is a legend. It's very popular nowadays. You go to certain YouTube sites and you'll see, Jesus never even existed. There's no evidence for him. It's like, wow, really? No evidence for his existence. You really have to discount the entire Christian church, the existence of the Christian church, the existence of the apostles, the existence of all that was said and done as recorded in the Gospels, to just discredit it just like that. You have to discount certain parts of history written by secular scholars near or shortly after the time of Jesus that record it. You just have to deny this. But this is how deep unbelief can get into the hearts of men and women that just do not want to accept all the claims that Jesus said and did. Do you follow me, my brothers and sisters? Yes. So that's what's at stake, and that's why I'm emphasizing it. Because I'm telling you, my brothers and sisters, it's going to get darker before it gets dawning, for lack of a better term. It's going to get darker, and you are going to be hard-pressed by colleagues, the government, everyone, on how can you believe this? No one, no modern person believes in these fairy tales. How can you be a 21st century man or woman and believe this guy walked on water? That's stupid. That's silly. Forget the Eucharist. Don't even talk to me about that. That's just mumbo jumbo. But you see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, it's going to get darker before it gets dawning. So we have to be ready, as St. Peter says in 1 Peter 3:15, I believe, to be ready to give a defense for our faith in all meekness and gentleness. And Peter wrote this at a time with the Roman Empire, saying, you believe that Nero is God, or you will be executed. You burn incense to the emperor's image, or you will be executed as an enemy of the state. Yes? Yes?
I just want to say that Jesus said, Jesus preaching in the Beatitude, that sermon on the mount, that blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the land.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Yes.
have to have faith, just like, and also Jesus said, when he come back, will we find faith, honor.
Yes. Yes. You remember that from when we did our study in Revelation.
Yes.
He said, you remember the verse that Jesus said, when he comes back, will he find faith on the earth? I tell you, I think that's the most haunting verse in all of the Gospels. And it's something that modern Protestant Bible preachers that preach the end of the world always miss, and I wonder why. I don't understand that, because I think it's such a poignant verse. Jesus said in his great Olivet Discourse, when the Son of Man returns, will he find faith? That's how dark it's going to be, my brothers and sisters. This also gives me great hope, because when I see such great faith in the world still, huge crowds coming to the Pope when he goes somewhere, stuff like this. I have huge crowds from all over the world coming to World Youth Day, things like that. I have faith that we're not in that time that Jesus said. We will eventually get there. Jesus said it, but we're not there yet. But you can see the beginnings, the tail end, if you will, of this coming about. And I'm telling you, it begins with this kind of scholarship that doubts and sows the seeds of doubt in your mind that all of this is just fooey.
Yeah, I was going to make a comment with regards to what you just said, that especially nowadays, when there's a lot of confusion. And I just want to acknowledge, I listened to Patrick Madrid and also Call to Communion, EWTN.
Yes.
And these people are really, if you really don't want to get confused with other non-Catholic religion, I guess it's important to just stick to learning the Catholic faith.
Yes.
Rather than listening to the other non-Catholic,
Yes.
People that can create more confusion.
Yes.
As long as we believe that the Catholic Church is the true church and the
Yes.
teachings of Jesus Christ is
Yes.
there, the Catholic
Yes.
teachings, then for me that's the only thing I'm gonna follow.
Yes. Yes.
And with regards to the relevant radio that I listened to Patrick Madrid, there was a lot of callers that really asked them why is this like that, and he's very good in answering all those
Yes.
questions. He's a very good apologist, so
Yes.
I really admire his. If you guys
Well, and I
listen
think
to
what
him.
the point is you're making is that although we have this darkness in the world, and we've always had it in some degree, or we always will. We always will. But I think also with this great darkness, we also have great light. The challenge of our day and age, in my opinion, is knowing where to find the right light. Because not everything that is with a Catholic label on it is faithful Catholic. And I think that that's important to point out as well. And that places like Relevant Radio and EWTN, and it's one of the things I want to put on the website, are these links to faithful Catholic resources and sites that you can go to find the answers that you're looking for. Places like Catholic Answers, the apologetic group in San Diego, a great source. People are constantly contacting them about, how do we know this, that, and the other? And they're on EWTN also. But the fact is that we have these multiple resources. You just have to know where to look. There are many Catholic commentaries on the Book of Genesis, but I guarantee you this, my brothers and sisters, a lot of them, I won't say all, but there's a lot of them that don't teach this way. They don't teach faithfully. And in my opinion, sow more confusion than they give light. And so it's important to find the right sources. And that's why I lead you into these sources, because in my humble opinion, these are faithful Catholic sources for you to build up your faith, not tear it down.
What can you say about CBI at Loyola Marymount College, University?
Nothing good. That's what I can say.
See, but a lot of Catholics are going there.
I know.
What is CBI?
So what is CBI?
The Catholic Bible Institute.
And they are very Catholic, but still confusing.
It was that Bible Institute that was at St. Greg's that I came in contact with that caused me to be so confrontational with what I was teaching. Because they were teaching that the JEDP theory is Catholic teaching. That modern critical view of the books of the Old Testament. And I was like, that can't be. And they said, yes, it is. And I was like, it can't be. So that's my, so I don't want, all I can say is this: not everything with a Catholic label on it is faithful. That's the best I can, that's the most charitable way I can put it. And it's true. and I will stand by it. And so when I was looking for theological seminaries or Bible schools to go to, I had to look very carefully because not everything is faithful. And that's when I went to JP Catholic. It was either that, Franciscan University, or the Augustine Institute. There's also Ave Maria in Florida. Ave Maria College, again, very faithful Catholic institute. Now Christendom College is another good one. Thomas Aquinas College here in California, also very faithful. But I have to think for a moment to find these places. They're not everywhere that you go to is blah 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 Catholic University is Catholic. It's not faithful.
So it's under Jesuits,
So
Loyola.
that means nothing to me. What matters is if they're faithful.
Yes.
I don't
they're
care if they're not faithful, I don't care who it is.
They are very modern, yes.
So it's just something that you need to be aware of. It is the cross we bear in this day and age. So I just consider yourself blessed. There are many other Catholic churches that have Bible studies that do not teach this way. And I know because I've been to them. And I was completely taken aback by it. And all I can say is that kind of theology is grape nuts theology. It's not grapes and it's not nuts. It's not Catholic and it's not faithful. That's all I can say about it. It's not Catholic and it's not faithful. Period.
Jesus, he preached that. Remember in Matthew 7:21-23, when he said no, he says, Mr. Master is going to go to heaven.
Mhm.
Because they're going to be people that will say in the name of God, we took demons and everything. But not even then, because there's
Right.
a lot of
False teachers. Yes.
teachers. And,
Yeah,
right
he
now.
mentioned that in the Olivet Discourse as well, his last sermon. He said false Christs and false prophets will appear and deceive many. Deceive many. And I think it's just something that you need to be aware of. It's just simply not faithful Catholic teaching. I don't know how easier or better to say. Well, Father so-and-so is teaching it at Loyola.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's not faithful Catholic